Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. We're going to jump right in. It's 10 o'clock on the hour, just to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you for choosing to spend some time with us on this Thursday morning. We're just going to dive right in. Thank you for being here. Like I said, for those of you I have not yet spoken to or communicated with via email, my name is Becca McLean. I am with Big Sky Public Relations. I work on behalf of the Montana Department of Transportation. I am the current communications manager and am available to help however I can throughout this Foys Lake Road interchange project. And to recap our title slide here, of course, this is a open house for the Kalispell Bypass Foys Lake Road interchange project. So thank you again for joining us. MDT has hired us to help in a number of different ways, including providing updates during construction, creating press releases for the media, hosting public meetings like this one to make sure that folks are informed. Normally our ideal situation would be to host this in person, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've decided to host a virtual meeting. So thank you in advance if we experience any technical difficulties, knock on wood, hopefully not. In addition, we have quite a handful of folks here with us from MDT representing the Foys Lake Road Interchange project. Beth Kappas, John Schmidt, Bob Vosen, and Drew Fetters of MDT. These wonderful folks are your go-to resources for all things Kalispell Bypass, and will be overseeing the Foys Lake Road project progress specifically. MDT folks, would you like to say hi and briefly introduce yourselves? Beth, if you want to go ahead and start, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Becca. This is Beth Kappas, and I work out of the Kalispell MDT office as a part of the department's alternative contracting group. And I've just been helping to manage this project through the pre-construction phase of things.
Thanks, Beth. And I'm John Schmidt. I'm the District 1 construction engineer for the Kalispell area. I help with contract administration during construction. And Bob, you want to go next?
Thanks, John, and thanks everybody for joining us this morning. My name is Bob Vosen. I'm the District 1 administrator, and I just want to share with the group looking at the attendees this morning. Thank you, everybody. I wish we could be doing this in person, have an opportunity to meet you face to face. I see that I've got friends and family that are attending, so thank you for those of you that are also, like me, residents of the Valley in the Kalispell area. Thank you for the time to come out. I hope you get your questions answered. Please feel free to ask questions at the end. And then I would encourage everyone to share the information you learn with your friends, family, neighbors, and explain the reason behind the project and what this exciting project is going to mean for the Valley. So again, thanks everyone.
I'm Drew Fetters. I'm with MDT. I'm the project manager for the Kalispell Bypass. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And next, last but not least, we have representatives from our engineering and construction teams. LHC Construction and KLJ Engineering representatives are in attendance here as well. LHC is the construction team who will be constructing the project. They're here to explain and answer any of your questions in more detail, and of course, walk through designs and plans as needed. KLJ and LHC folks, if you wouldn't mind sharing who's on the line. Don Sterna, we'll go ahead and start with you, please.
Yes, thank you, Becca. Don Sterna with KLJ. I've been the design manager on the LHC design build team, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions related to any design items that may arise. And again, thank you so much for your participation today. Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Dawn, and good morning, everybody. I'd also like to thank everybody for taking part in this morning. I'm Jim Mitchell. I'm part of the LHC management team. And as Becca said, we're the contractor that'll be performing the construction. We're a local firm that also delivered the northern portion of the bypass, the current 4-lane. So we're really excited to be involved in this and continue to deliver upgrades of the bypass to the community. And I'm here to answer any construction related questions you may have. So again, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Don and Jim, and everyone for introducing yourself. That was great. Again, my name is Becca, and I am serving as the communications manager for this Foys Lake Road project. I'm here to be a resource to you all and answer questions you might have throughout this entire construction process. My contact information is going to be at the end, so if you need to get in touch with me after this, if you have a question that comes up after the presentation, that's great. At any time during construction, you're welcome to reach out to me. As I mentioned, we're using Zoom, of course, to conduct this meeting. So thanks again for your flexibility. We are recording this presentation and placing it on the webpage so folks can view it after and have this information in the future and as we move forward. We certainly don't foresee virtual meetings replacing in-person open houses, but we just want to take the necessary precautions at this time. So thanks again. And additionally, since we cannot host this meeting in person, we will actually be using the Q&A functionality in Zoom to address your questions as comprehensively as possible at the end of this presentation. So you will see a Q&A button on your Zoom panel. It should be at the bottom of your screen. Feel welcome to type a question or comment here, and we, during the presentation or after, and we will answer as many questions as we can in this allotted time for our meeting here. If for some reason there's not enough time to answer all questions received, I can reach out to you via the email you registered with for this meeting and can certainly help address those questions. So thanks in advance for your patience. If we are unable for some reason to get to every single question, we're going to do our absolute best. Wonderful. Thank you for sitting through that lengthy intro. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Bob, and he's going to provide a review of the design plan for the project. Go ahead, Bob.
Thanks, Becca. So first thing is just to give kind of a brief recap of what the general plan is for this segment of the Kalispell bypass for those of you that weren't able to join us last fall. When we're completed with this project, the Kalispell bypass is going to carry our high-speed through traffic on that are utilizing the bypass to go over Foys Lake Road. The existing roundabout will be removed, and it'll be an interchange type system, very similar to what you see at US 2. Ramps will be constructed to facilitate northbound and southbound access to the Foys Lake Road, Meridian Road. At the bottom of these off and on ramps will be a pair of teardrop shaped roundabouts. These are very similar to the roundabouts that were constructed relatively recently in the Missoula area on Higgins Avenue, which is the similarities between Foys Lake and Higgins Avenue are they're great, very similar. Traffic counts are actually quite a bit lower at Foys Lake than what they are at Higgins, and we've had great success with the Van Buren Street roundabouts. So again, the advantage of the teardrop shaped roundabouts is that we'll be able to better accommodate the challenge presented by Valley View Drive, which you can see in the existing picture. That's the road that's running kind of across the bottom of the screen that approaches. Valley View presents a challenge in that it creates a 5-legged intersection at the west side of the bypass where the southbound off and on ramps would intersect. Excuse me. The Kalispell bypass will be built as an overpass over Foys Lake Road, like I said, with the 4 access ramps to be built from the bypass down to the Foys Lake Road to provide a safe and efficient highway travel. The existing Kalispell bypass 2-lane roadway is going to be extended to 4 lanes, and the shared use path will be maintained and continued as currently is being used. I just want to stress that by removing the higher volume of the Kalispell bypass, the actual bypass traffic from the roundabouts that are serving the Foys Lake Meridian Road traffic, it's going to allow them to operate at a much more efficient manner, and they'll be carrying essentially local residential traffic. Currently, there's about 23 100,000 cars a day that run through that intersection. The bypass carries about 18,000 of that. So when you take that 18,000 vehicles out of the roundabouts, it makes them more than adequate to carry the traffic that is in place. For those semis and trucks, we find that the great preponderance, 90% of the large trucks are going to stay on the bypass and not have to navigate the roundabouts at all. However, those trucks that do need to access Meridian or Foys Lake, the roundabouts are designed in a fashion that will accommodate a full semi to be able to utilize them. In addition, the regional trail and the new sidewalk will direct pedestrians and bikers to cross at the roundabout, allowing a safer crossing, as the pedestrians will only have to cross one lane at a time, and then they will be able to have a refuge island and before they move on to the next crossing. So also, and as part of this project, we're going to be constructing a small parking area at the corner of Valley View Drive to accommodate the many trail users accessing the network in the area. That location is generally in the location of the pedestrian underpass under the bypass today on the west side of the bypass. So with that, for further design review, I'm going to turn it over to Beth now.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, this is Beth again with MDT. So as discussed, the new Foys Lake Road interchange is going to utilize roundabouts, and we wanted to just give a little bit of recap again on why this type of intersection control was selected for the new facility. So shown on the screen here is a rendering that depicts what the new interchange facility will look like, and I think this image is really helpful for picturing how things are going to work. But you can see there's that large semi that's staying on the bypass going over Foys Lake Road. And then we have sort of the intersection control between those ramps and some of those other surface roadways coming into the roundabouts there. So first off, when navigating the roundabouts, drivers slow to between 15 and 20 miles an hour, and they're all required to travel in the same counterclockwise direction. So this type of movement really reduces the likelihood and severity of an accident. So roundabouts are highly effective in reducing crashes at intersections, and ultimately that supports MDT's primary goal of providing safer roadways in this project area and also across the state of Montana. I think it's also really important to remember that for the Foys Lake Road project specifically, roundabout intersections are really only a part of the interchange features and operations. So we project that 20 years from now, in 2041, only about 50% of the current intersection traffic will be using those single lane roundabouts to be constructed on Foys Lake Road. So ultimately, these roundabouts are going to be seeing a lot less volume, and that's really going to help their efficiencies. You know, well-functioning roundabouts allow traffic to keep moving, resulting in less delays, and really increased efficiencies when compared to traditional signalized intersections at ramp terminals and similar applications like this. And again, this efficiency is really just in addition to the safety aspects that we're, benefiting from with this design. Also keep in mind that like Bob said, over 90% of the trucks passing through the existing intersection will not be navigating the new roundabouts. So bypass north-south traffic will be able to travel unimpeded over Foys Lake Road via that new overpass bridge that will be constructed. And so again, the semi truck in the image is free flow onto their next destination if they're staying on the bypass there. So this new facility will truly be an interstate style full interchange, similar to what we see on the north half of the bypass. And then, as Bob said, the small number of trucks that will use Foys Lake Road should notice that the new roundabouts and truck aprons will be adequately designed to prevent load shifting when trucks navigate at the appropriate speed. So in summary, I think we again just really want to emphasize the safety of this intersection type. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety found that on average, roundabouts reduce fatalities by 90%, serious injury crashes by 75%, and all kinds of crashes by 37%. And to bring things a little bit closer to home, here locally, roundabouts are proven to reduce fatalities and serious injuries at high-speed rural intersections similar to this. So again, those slower speeds and one-directional traffic mean fewer crossing conflicts for vehicles and pedestrians. And then in this setup, vehicles and pedestrians also have more time to react to one another, which certainly helps. So I guess with that brief overview of some of the design features associated with this project, I'll go ahead and turn it over to John to talk a little bit more about what to expect during construction.
Thanks, Beth. So in general, I'm gonna start with our timeline. Construction right now, we're planning on beginning construction next week. People will start to see equipment moving into the site. And the plan is to have the new roadway open in November of 2021. And then there will be some final chip seal and pavement marking that's going to be done in the spring and summer of 2022. Residents should or will experience some construction disturbances, including delays in your drive and short interruptions to utilities, possibly as we relocate some of those to get them out of the construction area. There will be some general dust and noise that'll be generated just with the construction activities. Construction is going to primarily occur during daylight hours, consisting of single lane closures when necessary during the work hours. And our traffic control folks will be using flagging operations and temporary signals to facilitate the traffic control. We may see some occasional weekend closures with sign detours. And this is related to some things where it's just not safe to have traffic in the area, such as if we're setting beams and we can't have traffic going underneath the crane or the beam. The road will be reopened during peak traffic hours on weekdays, and night activities may occur if safety considerations warrant. And really that goes back to what can we do to keep everybody safe. The initial construction phase will first focus on widening the bypass south of Foys Lake Road and building the northbound ramps. Once the ramps are finished, traffic on the bypass is going to be shifted to the northbound ramps to allow room for us to build the bridge and the remaining bypass roadway to be built. The final phase will then be to shift traffic back to the newly constructed 4-lane bypass to allow for completion of the roundabouts on Foys Lake Road. Also, a quick reminder here that there's no need to memorize all the information on these slides. Big Sky Public Relations is going to be providing weekly updates via email and on our project webpage. And also, like Becca said, this slideshow will also be posted on our webpage. And the details to find that information will be provided at the end of the presentation. In addition, the project team will be holding weekly public meetings on Thursdays beginning March 4th. We invite everyone to attend. These meetings will be from 10 to 10:30 in the morning each Thursday via Zoom. Members of the project team and I will be present to answer questions as construction progresses. More details are available on the webpage that will be listed at the end of the presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Bob to discuss budget and maintenance.
Thanks, John. This works better if I remember to unmute myself. The budget and maintenance, the project was awarded, as you can see, to a design build team of LHC and KLJ for $14.7 million. The city of Kalispell received a federal build grant that covers $12.7 million of the project expenditures, and the remainder is going to be paid through a combination of MDT's federal and state highway funding sources. And our maintenance of the project will be similar to the rest of the bypass. The use of the roundabout does eliminate some annual and long-term maintenance costs associated with signal systems, and also one of the benefits that we see with a roundabout versus signal is that power outages don't affect the functionality of a roundabout. So with that, I'm going to throw it back over to John to discuss some of the other projects in the Kalispell area.
Thanks, Bob. So we do understand that there are a lot of Kalispell projects occurring in the coming years. And during this presentation, we just wanted to give a quick overview of some other things that folks can expect. We are going to be working on Dern Road and Spring Creek Road at the intersection of Highway 2. We do expect that work to begin in the early summer of this year, weather permitting. And for those that don't know, a roundabout was chosen to be installed at that location due to their being able to effectively manage reducing crashes. And we do have more details on that project on our project webpage at our public involvement page on the department's website. And then another one that most on the call are probably familiar with is the Kalispell concrete rehab. We did finish up the concrete smoothing part of that project from Meridian Road to Underpass Hill last summer. However, this summer there will be a few more impacts while we finish the permanent striping on that road. And with that, Bob, do you want to talk a little bit about Vision Zero?
Thanks, John. Yep, I did get the unmute button. Excuse me. Yeah, MDT has a goal of Vision Zero, which is a multi-pronged initiative with the ultimate goal of being of eliminating deaths and injuries on Montana highways. Without good roads, bridges, and intersections, traveling safely and efficiently through Montana would be very difficult, and more deaths and injuries would be likely to occur, and it would be harder to do business, visit family, or organize public events such as track meets and concerts. Having good roads, bridges, and other transportation systems and educating drivers on how to use them is critical to building strong communities in a strong state. And as one of the Flathead Valley's most traveled roadways, the Foys Lake Road and larger Kalispell bypass projects must align with our Vision Zero goal, and we strongly believe that this design will allow us to best achieve our goal. Back to you, John, to discuss ongoing public involvement and participation after this presentation.
Thanks, Bob. So as we've said, MDT welcomes any questions on the project plans. Our current plan is working on an accelerated schedule to complete this project in line with the bill grant restrictions and timeline. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate your time. I'm going to pass it back to Becca to provide contact information, and then we would love to hear your questions for the remainder of the meeting.
Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. This is Becca speaking again. I am going to pause here on this screen for quite a while. There's my email, becca@bigskypublicrelations.com. You're welcome to email me anytime, now after the open house with questions, or anytime throughout construction. I am your gal if you have questions or comments to pass to the project team. We also have a project hotline listed there that's available to chat during business hours if you would prefer that. And lastly, as mentioned a few times in the presentation, the Kalispell Bypass webpage link is listed there at the bottom. And again, if for some reason you're not able to write this down at the moment, this presentation will be on that Kalispell Bypass webpage as well for future reference. And I just want to mention again, I know it was mentioned earlier, but the project team will be holding weekly public meetings on Thursdays beginning next week, March 4th. We invite everyone to attend. These are open to the public. No registration is required. We just ask that folks, if you're interested or have questions that week about what's going to be happening, throughout construction, you're welcome to just pop in. These meetings will be from 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. each Thursday until the foreseeable future. And like I said, members of the project team and myself will be present to answer questions. And again, pointing back to the webpage, more details and the Zoom link for each week will be available on the webpage. Thank you. Thanks everyone for your time and for bearing with us as we walked through that presentation. I want to transition now into our question and answer session. I know the team is more than happy to answer questions and hear feedback. If you have a question, please feel free to type it in the chat box. I see we have a couple already. My wonderful colleague, Katie, is actually going to help facilitate the Q&A. So she's going to read your question aloud, and then we will direct it to a project team member and get that answered. If for some reason your full question wasn't answered or we misunderstood or something like that, I can certainly reach out to you, or you're welcome to email me for any follow-up. And again, like I said in the beginning, if for some reason we're not able to get to all questions, I will certainly follow up as well. So with that, let's dive into our questions. Katie, if you want to go ahead and read the first one or the top one, that would be fantastic.
Thanks, Becca. So our first question is from Barbara, and she asks, is there a plan to improve the surface transitions from paving to bridges on the north section, as well as the Foys Lake overpass? And then she makes a note that the current surface has a huge bump.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Barbara. That is a great question. I will pass that to Bob if you're able to address that question, Bob.
So I am aware of the bump. The bridges on the north section. I believe you're talking about the bridge that goes over US 2. That area is actually outside of the project limits of where we have very specific project limits, which is the extents and the locations that we can utilize the funding associated with this project. And with this being a build grant project, those restrictions are even more dialed in than normally. I would say that we could definitely, there's a potential for our maintenance folks to try to work with the contractor to do something as a separate project, but as part of this project, the answer is that we will not be able to address those locations. Hopefully our maintenance folk will be able to do something with that this spring though.
Thank you, Bob.
And I guess maybe I just wanted to add to that. I think maybe Barbara's question too was also aimed at kind of how we intend to work around that common problem on the Foys project. Again, I agree with Bob. I think this is a great question, and I think the bridge end bump is a problem that plagues roadways all across America, and it really has to do with the difference in stiffness between what the bridge sits on and what the road sits on. And so those two systems are obviously very different. And so, you know, settlement differences between the two is what really causes that bump. And so I think during construction, just making sure that we have really good compaction and earthwork procedures can really help mitigate that issue from developing in the future. And I think this Kalispell bypass area does have some really unique soils that are a little bit more susceptible to that bump. But again, I think the project team's certainly aware that this is a common problem, and will be working to certainly avoid it as we get to construction. But I would certainly, you know, ask Jim and John to weigh in on that as well.
Yeah, just a quick comment, Beth, is one of our considerations in the design was exactly that. And this design is going to utilize a spread footing for the bridge abutments. And what that does is allows that bridge to act more homogeneously with the embankments on either side, so that the movements are tied together rather than those different stiffnesses like you pointed out, Beth. So it's our hope that this will alleviate some of that problem that we see on all the bridges in that differential settlement. So it's a good question, though.
Thanks everyone for that thorough answer. Thanks, Barbara, for a great question. Katie, is there another question that you would like to read out for us, please?
Yeah, thanks, Becca. So George has two questions or comments about the Foys design. So first he says, I know there's been a lot of consideration around the potential for pedestrian and bike conflict. And with that, his comment is that he had hoped that after our conversations in the fall, that a couple of design features may have been considered to be added to the project. And what he's saying in addition to that is that one, a lighted hawk type signal should be installed at the trail intersections. And two, he would like to see more of a raised physical barrier between the sidewalk and the vehicle lanes. He states that he believes that those two features would really increase the actual and perceived safety for pedestrians and make the project something excellent. So I will turn it back over to the team if there had been any thoughts or considerations that we might be able to share about the pedestrian and bike conflicts.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Katie. Great question. John or Beth, do you feel like you can speak to pedestrian and bike considerations for George?
Yeah, I'll take a first pass at that, I guess. Great question, great comments. I think one challenge that the department continues to face is just some of the limitations that our fundings kind of impose on projects, and Bob can certainly speak to that more, but a lot of times we are limited in what pedestrian facility improvements we can provide, just because funding is so limited. And then also, when we're installing these types of things, it really requires a lot of long-term maintenance. And again, we have limited money to build projects, but even less money really to maintain stuff. So that's definitely a consideration when it comes to some of the advanced signals that are used for pedestrian facilities. So one thought there. And then I guess when it comes to kind of installing physical barriers between sidewalks and vehicle lanes, there are a lot of design requirements that make it so that we are putting as little obstacles near the roadway as possible just to make it safer for vehicles. And so really, sometimes it is nice to have separation and additional devices out there for certain reasons and for channelizing different modes of traffic, but really ultimately they can be safety concerns. So I think that's probably why a couple of these great comments and considerations aren't being included as a part of this project. But I certainly kick that back to Bob and John for additional thoughts.
Beth, I think you, this is Bob again, by the way. I think you did a pretty good job with the answer. Funding always plays such a critical part in what we're doing. And we have to make sure that we're building the right solutions for the right situation. And it always becomes a challenge to make sure that we're doing things for the right reasons. The other component to it is I know that a hawk system in locations in the proximity of a roundabout presents some challenges. I'm aware of a couple other locations where the idea has been presented and it was deemed that it wasn't the right solution to utilize a hawk configuration. One thing that I will say in the advantage to a roundabout is that there is, reduced speeds for the traffic. So the vehicles aren't traveling at as great a speed. The pedestrian only has to cover a single lane at a time. And the other thing to remember is that on the completed design, the number of vehicles that'll be using these roundabouts is going to be so much less traffic utilizing the roundabouts than what you're seeing out there today. So the last comment I'd make is I'd like to hear if Don has anything to add to it, as he's the designer that's been involved with this.
Thank you, Bob. I think you kind of, and Beth touched on the major things on the roundabout. The beauty of the roundabout is that there is splitter islands. You're crossing one lane of traffic at a time, where traditional ones you're crossing both lanes. So there is a refuge island on the splitters, and you're only going to be crossing one lane of traffic at a time, so you can look the other way as you go. So those are the benefits to it. Yeah, the Hawk system, they've been using those more on dual lane, so 2-lane roundabouts, where more traffic and more motion is moving through those, where they find the benefit on those systems. But you're right, those systems do require a lot more maintenance. So that's one of the other reasons why it probably wasn't considered here as well, and they are very expensive as well to put in. Again, the touch on the traffic volumes, you know, most of the time at these roundabouts, the peak volumes are occurring in the morning and AM and PM. So during your normal day and weekends, at the roundabouts, you're going to see a much easier, I guess, process of getting across, less traffic to fight, and again, one lane at a time. So, and that was one of the other beauty of the roundabouts, is it does provide one of the better protections for pedestrian and bicyclist usage. So I think that's about all I can really truly add on to it. So hopefully that helps.
This is Jim with LHC. I also just want to point out, to address question number 2, is that the vehicle lanes on the through Foys portion, the sidewalk that parallels is separated with a curb and also boulevard. So they're between the vehicles and the sidewalk, there is a raised curb, and I believe it's a 3-foot boulevard.
Thanks, everybody. These are great questions. Keep them coming. Katie, is there another question you could read off for us, please?
Yeah, so Barbara followed up and asked how we plan to educate about the proper use of roundabouts.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Barbara. That's a great question. That is the ever-present goal that's definitely on my radar as being in charge of communication for the project. Certainly my goal, you know, within updates as we move forward and chat about roundabouts will be to include informational videos MDT has done in the past, and make sure we do all we can to make sure folks, you know, have resources, like I said, via email updates, via the webpage. As I do understand that's a common comment. We hear that, you know, folks in Montana need to be educated, or all around need to be educated, frankly, on how to properly drive a roundabout. Beth or MDT team, if you have any other thoughts you'd like to add on that, feel free.
I certainly don't have anything to add to that, Becca. Thanks. And Bob, I didn't know if you had additional thoughts there.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you know, MDT recognizes that there's an ongoing request for education on how to navigate roundabouts. I do know that MDT has provided materials to the driver's ed programs around the state of Montana. Know that I have factual knowledge of that, as my daughter just completed driver's ed. She currently is the proud owner of a learner's permit, which has definitely added to the gray hair count on my head. But I do know that she repeatedly on drives, almost every drive that the Kalispell school system has, every time those kids were out driving, they're being taken through the roundabouts. So one way we're educating is through the youth. As those young drivers are becoming more and more comfortable with it, they're able to also share with their parents and with their grandparents as they're traveling with them. So that's one route that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. But also we have Becca and Katie's team have put together a couple short videos that are available. We'll be trying to utilize those. And then myself and my staff, John and Beth, we're always willing to go out and visit with any of the different groups within the public. I've spoken to the Elks, the Eagles, you know, any different any groups that are interested in updates from MDT, and this summer, where we're going to be constructing some roundabouts in the area, that'll be something that we will discuss the navigation of the roundabouts and just kind of remind people some of the key points. So that's kind of our ongoing efforts. I think that we will be utilizing, like I say, those videos via social media. You'll probably see some more of those as the summer goes on.
Absolutely. Great points, Bob. Thank you for that. Thank you for a great question, Barbara. Katie, is there another question for the team?
There is, and before we get to that, I also wanted to point out that I included in the chat, Barbara, a link to some of the materials that Bob was talking about with our videos of how to drive a roundabout. Those are just a few of them. And certainly if you have folks that are interested in learning more, we have an abundance of resources. So feel free to reach out to Becca and we can get those over to you as well. So with that, our next question is from Catherine, and Catherine is asking, well, first she says, thank you for the information today and the upcoming weekly meeting opportunity. Becca, could you maybe repeat the time and access information for those Thursday meetings?
I sure can, thank you. They will be every Thursday, starting next Thursday, March 4th, a week from today, from 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And this website link right here you see on your screen, the Kalispell Bypass MDT page, will have it already has actually Zoom information for those meetings. And all you have to do is just click that link. That's available on the front screen of this webpage or dial in via phone.
Perfect, thanks Becca. And I just also responded via the chat, so you have that as well. Next question is from George. So he wanted to follow up on his comment and just asking if a sturdier timber barrier would look great along the sidewalk. We should be as concerned about pedestrian safety as we are vehicle safety.
Hi, George. Thank you for your comment and question. That's great. I think, let's see, I'm not sure if Jim, you would be the best person to answer this. If not, feel free to pass elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's probably more of an MDT question. As far as we're concerned as a contractor, it wasn't part of the requirement. It would look nice. I know one of the problems that Bob will maybe discuss is the maintenance of it and having access to be able to get in there, and if the sidewalk is going to be cleared to snow, having room to do that, and snow storage off of the bypass. So
Thanks, Jim.
it would look good, but there are lots of issues that go along with putting a barrier.
Yeah, Jim, this is Bob, and you're absolutely right. Anytime we do design, if we put anything hazardous within the right of way, it has to meet the needs. There has to be a need addressed that addresses, and that's the challenge. These are national design standards that have to be followed, and we can't put something hazardous in within the clear zone, the crash zone, if there's not an address need. And in this location, I can't say for certain as I'm not the designer, but I've got a pretty high level of confidence when I say that there isn't an addressed need that a timber barrier would be placed there. And the reason I say that is we have sidewalks adjacent to roundabouts in many places throughout the state and the country that don't require a guardrail or a barrier rail in that location. So we're introducing more hazards for the drivers, and there isn't a need that we're addressing. So that falls under the federal guidance, the rules of how we construct it, what the design standards are, and we would need an exception to construct it. The second part of that is the funding, not only paying for it initially, but timber type barriers, there's a reason we've gone away from them. Rarely do you see a true timber barrier as a crash barrier. Designed for them is very timber's an inconsistent material, and it presents some huge maintenance challenges. So I'm pretty sure we would not be able to utilize that.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Jim. And thanks, George, for your great question. Hopefully that was helpful. Katie, are there other questions in the Q&A?
We don't currently have any, but just as a reminder for our 25 attendees, if you do have a question, there's that Q&A button at the bottom. It looks like 2 speech bubbles. You're welcome to put that in. to your question, and we can certainly answer it now. Or if it's something where you would like to have a larger conversation, you can send a message privately, or feel free to follow up with Becca and we can get your contact information and follow up with you.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, just going off of what Katie said, we have quite a bit of time here, and the project team is here to answer questions and address any concerns or feedback you have. So feel free, like Katie said, to use that chat box, and we will just hang out here for a bit to see if there are any additional questions. Thank you. Great. It looks like we have another one, Katie, if that's correct.
Yeah, thanks, John. This just came through. So John is asking that, or saying that he's looking forward to the lack of traffic backup in the early morning commute around the Foys Lake roundabout. I'm just saying thanks. That's just a nice comment to note. And then Barbara has just asked, when should we expect the traffic diversion off of Foys to get to US 2?
Thanks, Katie. Thank you, John, for that comment, and Barbara for your question. I will direct that to Bob or John. Are you able to speak to that?
Yeah, I guess if I'm understanding the question right, it's when would we anticipate having traffic shifted to the northbound ramps and around the current roundabout? And I guess I'm not quite as familiar with the schedule. Jim, can you give us a ballpark of when we think those northbound ramps will be constructed and we'll be shifting traffic?
Yeah, probably about the 1st of June. And of course, access to US 2 via the current interchange will not be restricted at any time. We understand some people may choose to use that intersection versus the Foys, but we have no plans that will affect that US 2 ramps. So yeah, our schedule is that by June, we should have traffic off of the main line and onto that temporary diversion of the northbound on and off ramps, which is the east side of the highway, the Meridian side of the highway, in June. And that'll allow us to construct the bridge outside of traffic. And back to the comment, one thing I wanted to add that wasn't mentioned on the roundabouts with the traffic backup, our models when we were designing this project actually showed that there would still be a backup with a signalized intersection, in particular for the northbound off traffic going towards Meridian Road. And when we introduced that roundabout concept, it totally eliminated it. It raised that level of operation to the highest level with no backup. So we really wanted to get away from, like the comment said, that backup, especially for northbound off-ramp traffic. And we feel like that the design we came up with does that. So both great questions. Thank you.
Jim, this is Don Sir. I'll add on to that as well. Our model also showed that there'd be a significantly less delay time on traffic utilizing Foys. Because every time you stop at a signalized intersection, you've got a 1.5 to 2 minute delay waiting for the traffic to clear, and they usually go on a certain time between cycles. So that's the other nice thing about roundabouts is that it allows for more of a free flow, especially when there's very few traffic vehicles on the roundabout. So that's another nice benefit of roundabouts.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your great questions. And just to clarify, the presentation portion of this is completed. So if you don't have other questions, you're welcome to hop off if needed. But as always, certainly feel free to pop in more questions if you have them. I don't think there are any other in the chat, Katie, unless I'm missing them, but we can hang out and see if anyone else has a question in the meantime.
Thanks, Becca. Just to confirm, no additional questions, but we will wait around in case they do come in.
Perfect. I see another question. Katie, if you wouldn't mind reading that to us, that would be awesome.
Yeah, you bet. So Adam has just asked, will this include 4 lanes to Airport Road?
Thanks, Adam. Great question. Bob or John, I will defer this question to you, please.
You bet. So the 4 lanes, it includes 4 lanes to the south. The 4 lanes will end about at Wisher's Salvage Yard, and then merge back into 2 lanes through the roundabout. So the 4 lanes do extend about another mile, but don't extend through Airport Road.
Thanks, John. That was a great question. Thank you. As I mentioned, please feel free to keep questions coming if you have them. The project team has, set aside this time, so they're certainly available. I think maybe we'll hang out until close to 11, seeing that questions have slowed down a little bit. And as I mentioned earlier, and I will state again, if you have anything that comes up or you think of after the presentation, you're more than welcome to email me and I will get in touch with answers as soon as I can. So like I said, we will just sit tight and see if anyone else has questions. They've been fantastic so far. Thanks everyone for your participation. It's been super valuable. So we'll just sit tight and thanks for your time. Hi, everybody. Just to be respectful of everyone's time, myself and the project team will stick around for another maybe 3 or 4 minutes and are happy to answer questions if they come up. But otherwise, thank you all for attending and for such valuable questions. I know the project team really appreciates you taking time out of your Thursday morning to join us, and I do as well. So thank you for your time and feel free to sign off unless there are other questions. And like I said, we will stick around for another 2 or 3 minutes here and then sign off for the morning. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Okay, hearing none, I think we will sign off. Again, thank you so much everyone for your time. It's truly appreciated and your participation. These are super productive questions. Feel free to reach out to me now, today, anytime in the next year as this construction project continues, and I'm more than happy to help. Thanks everyone for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.